right, welcome back. Another episode of Unheard Journeys. I'm Mike DePalma, alongside my co-host Mike Bloomfield. We got a great guest today. I'm really excited about somebody I've known for a long time. Consider a close friend. Have a ton of respect for him. Coming to us all the way from Alabama. Our furthest guest so far. The only one that hasn't come to Staten Island. We'll get you up to Staten Island next time, Paul. But Paul Franks, why don't you introduce yourself and then we'll kick things off.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Hopefully that intro is not going to cost a lot of money for me. How much you're being George me. Anyway, Paul Franks here. Just kind of retired MSP owner. I do consulting work for the MSP industry right now with various MSP owners, and yeah, I'm just kind of living life a little bit outside the daily grind.
That's awesome. Yeah, we the first time we met, I don't know if you remember, it was DattoCon Nashville 2016. You were on the advisory board, and we had that bourbon tasting, and I just remember it was like 120 degrees in that restaurant. Remember that?
Yeah,
And we sat next to each other, and we just kind of hit it off, right? So it's and this is the first time you're meeting Mike, right? Have you
Hey,
ever?
I don't think we've met before. Nice to meet you.
I don't think so. I'm not sure if we have yet.
I was at Nashville though.
You were there.
There was a few thousand people.
Yeah, that's right. It was hot.
That was a good DagoCon.
That was my first one. That was the first one I went to.
It was a great data con because it was easy. I was able just to drive up there, so I didn't have to fly. Super nice.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. So, what we try to do on this podcast is just we want to hear your story, right? Everybody, especially in the MSP space, but we've expanded this out, and really any business owner, there tends to not be this linear path. It's not like, I went to college, I wanted to be this, and, people get to spots, and especially where you are now, and you're, back into your entrepreneurial spirit, and we'll get into the things that you're doing now. But I want to go back to young Paul Franks. Paul Franks in high school, right? So when you were sitting there saying, all right, it's about time to get into the workforce, like where was it that you were interested in and where did you, want to start out your career?
Oh my goodness. Well, first yeah, gosh, you go all the way back to high school. That's been quite a while. But the first thing I remember is in the yearbook. It's kind of like likely to do whatever in your yearbooks and all that. So mine said a used car salesman because I'm big into cars, as you know,
Yeah.
and always have been my whole life. And so my dad and I would restore cars at a younger age and work on them and stuff. So I just enjoyed that. So that was what I was most likely to do. I would have to say my wife would probably think, yeah, I have a used car lot now. I don't, I buy and sell, but anyway, that's just another story. But yeah, so I didn't really think in high school about technology at all. I took technology classes, but I really didn't get into it. I think it was just right after high school, starting college, I was going into electronics. So I thought, oh, I'll go into electronics. I'll probably go work for the railroad, CSX, or somewhere in the electronics field. And then I ended up having to take a few core classes that were all computer related, Microsoft stuff, and just really kind of fell in love with it. And really, if I kind of go backwards even further past high school as a younger kid, my dad worked for NCR Corporation. And he was in the forms division when there was such a thing as having forms that people would fill out by with a pen. Uh, he always brought me in the summertime, and I would go hang out down in the lab with the computer guys on the ATM machines and all that stuff. And that kind of probably started me in the technology world. But again, just didn't want to do it. But once got into college and started taking some of those computer classes, I just knew, yeah, I want to be in technology, most definitely. Didn't know what in technology because it was so young at the time, but I knew that's where I wanted to be.
What was back then? What computer classes were they teaching?
Well, believe it or not, there were some Microsoft classes, learning some Microsoft, the workstation side, the server side, just getting into it. Your MCSE stuff was starting to come out. Even before that, I ended up getting my CNA and Novell and learning all that stuff. Like that's forever ago, but got started with Novell first because Microsoft was a little late coming on, really strong. So it was all about, about Novell getting started there and then working my way. Uh,
So you came out of college. What was that first job?
Well, it's kind of funny because I can't remember that far back, so I've had LinkedIn opened up trying to figure out what the heck did I start with. But I worked for my first job was a company called Cato Systems, CADO, and they were a proprietary kind of a mainframe system, small one that went in doctors' offices, lawyers, and all that. And that's kind of where I started was there, and then progressed up, worked for a company called Superior Consultant, got my MCSE, started traveling around the country, really upgrading from Novell to Microsoft in hospitals and stuff. Georgetown was one of the big ones that I worked in for quite a while. And then from there worked for a large aggregate company called Vulcan Materials Corporation. Worked in their IT department for 5 years. Ended up getting laid off with a bunch of us when they divested some companies. And then I started US Techs, which was my first MSP, and arguably, I would say that we were the first MSP in the state of Alabama before that name even really came out
Yeah, what year
as
was
the
that?
forward. That was, I'm looking
He
here
keeps
because
looking at the
I
LinkedIn.
don't
I love it.
remember, but US Tech was around 2001.
Yeah, so you were really
Revenue.
early if that was an MSP to start.
So an interesting story I was doing in kind of in between all that, I worked in a consultant role for another company, and I told the owner, I was like, we need to do remote administration. Internet broadband was coming out. We need to do remote administration. And I was trying to explain it to the gentleman and my boss, and he's like, no, that will never work. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. And I went, perfectly fine. And I just still kind of kept thinking about it. And then from there, when I was able to start US Techs back in 01, 2001, just that's what we did was started remote administration, and I really started with remote virus protection and kind of moved up from there.
How are you getting early on, right? You make this leap, you start a company. How are you getting clients? Did you have people kind of lined up that you were doing stuff on the side for, or?
Yes, absolutely. So I was doing things on the side, and then it's funny because when you leave well, first of all, Vulcan took care of me when they laid us off, so I had kind of a runway of money that I could use to live on for a while. But money is a huge motivator, right? When you don't have anything coming in and you just got all of that's going out. So I just got into sales mode and just started networking, going to local lunch and learns and just doing as much as I could to get my name out there. And then you blink an eye, and I've got two or three people. My wife's kicking me out of the house into an office somewhere, and the rest is history. So yeah, it was just hard work, sales, and meeting people, and just building that network of people.
So you came out of college, you did all this tech, computer work, working IT department, started your business 2001. If we go back to while you're in high school, junior high school, did you ever work any other jobs? Did you ever do anything not in tech? Or has
Oh
basically
yeah, I
every
mean,
job of yours been tech?
oh no, no, no. I worked at my uncle's gas
Yeah, we want
station.
to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting because I was only 15 at the time, and my dad or mom would have to drive me over. My grandmother lived near them. I'd go over to there and then walk to work, and just would pump gas because that's when we had full service gas stations around. We don't really have those anymore in Alabama, but pump gas and clean windshields, and that's all I did. That's all they would allow me to do, and hose down the driveways and stuff.
But you think about it, and the reason we ask is because a lot of that, what you do when you're young, is what
Mhm.
prepares you for the future and gives you that entrepreneurial like mindset to understand the work. You look
Yes.
at some of these kids today. They're living at home. They're 30 something and never had a job. They just like we're in school forever.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes. Yeah.
I go back to my junior high school. I was rolling around the garbage pail and a broom and sweeping the streets to make money because otherwise my dad said you don't get money if you don't make
That's
money.
exactly right. Yeah.
So
That's it. Nothing was ever handed to me for sure. I mean, it was work, and if I didn't go to college, my dad said I had 6 months to figure it out, to go find a place to live and all that, and that was just the way it was growing up. I mean, he was a great man and truly miss him, but I mean, it was, I think I'm who I am now because of him being hard, not hard. I say hard. Parents can be hard on you, but in a good way, right? A loving way, be hard on you. That's the way he was.
Right. Giving you that mindset and understanding that this is what you have to do to earn money.
That's it. Absolutely.
So
A-
Absolutely.
And I know on your family side, you're a very close knit family guy, and that's one of the reasons we hit it off. How hard was it? I know your son's out in the workforce now. He actually lives up here. He's up in New York.
oh, is he?
Um,
Yes.
but how hard? So you grew up kind of the way we grew up. Like I started working when I was like 12 years old, doing little odd jobs and things like that. But with the new kind of mentality and mindset of these younger kids, like how were you able to instill that type of work ethic in your son when maybe his friends weren't getting that? You know what I mean?
Well, I think from the time they could remember, they were living in an entrepreneurial house, right?
Yeah.
Because, Garrett, which is the one that's in New York City working, he remembers me at Vulcan because I'd bring him in sometimes to work or whatever, but he really remembers all the US Tech days and then building the companies from there. So he always had that mindset is I worked hard and nothing was given to us. And I instilled that into all three of my boys today. And even Garrett being 25 and living in New York City all on his own, off my payroll, which is nice. It is, he's an amazing guy and amazing young man. But all of them are like that. So I instilled early on, guys, just like you've got to work, nothing's given to you. It's all about what you do and how you do it and how you can be a good steward in this world that we live in today. And that just and I just kind of look back and I watch and it's almost kind of like I tell my wife I'm watching reruns with some of these kids with our kids, like they got it. They're doing those things, and they all work hard, which is it's a bittersweet thing having Garrett move up there. It's kind of like you teach them how to be independent, or you teach them everything and then you have to teach them how to be independent and go live out on their own. I just didn't think he would move that far away, but anyway,
It's pretty
What-
close to me. Well, I
it-
wouldn't say far from me.
yeah.
Where in the city is he? Is he in Manhattan?
He is, yes, yes. He's in advertising, media sales, does a lot of advertising in student buildings with the screens, all the
Yep.
TV screens do advertising. That's what he does. So it's really neat outfit.
That's awesome. Yeah. So back to your entrepreneurial days. So 2001, for those of you that aren't really familiar with the MSP space, I don't even think the term MSP existed in 2001. So you guys,
Yeah.
that group, I always have a ton of respect for you guys because you guys really, the people that were around then created it, right? Kind of figured out what it meant. So, you went in with you solving a specific problem, but at what point did you start to say, "Hey, I could actually be a full-fledged outsource IT," or I know you focus on backup, that type of stuff. Like how did your business model evolve and how quickly did it evolve?
You know, First of all, by the grace of God, I mean, it was just very blessed to how that business started out because I literally started US Techs in the basement, selling and doing all the work myself. And then before you know it, I had 5 or 6 customers. We're probably averaging 2,000 a month on those customers at the time. And it was still just me. And then that's when I hired in my first and second person and then moved into an office. And I think we ended up with 12 before I sold it in 2013. But it was literally it was more I was trying to hang out in circles where a lot of business owners hung out, so I knew they talk. So I knew if I could do one or two and do really well with those companies, I knew that they would talk in that circle,
Mhm.
and then I would get more. And then we just strategically did it that way, and it just kept mushrooming to the point where we were hiring as quick as we could at the time. So, and that was very fast. I mean, I never would have expected it to grow that much because again, we were this new idea, right? We're going to charge you X amount a month and we're going to handle all your IT needs. And they're like, all of my IT needs, every bit of it. We're like your IT department, just not there every second of the day. And it just took off, to the point where I was literally surprised at how fast it worked, how fast it took off. So
Yeah, and especially if it was that, that long ago. You said you sold in 2013, right?
We
So
did, yeah. Sold to a company called NetGain Technologies out of Kentucky, but I don't think they're around anymore. I think they ended up selling as well at some point.
yeah, but if you go back to that 2013, even back then MSP was a new term. That
Yeah.
we started in 2000. Actually, I think January 2nd, 2013 is when I started the business, and it was still a new term, and people getting break fix people understand. So even now, right? You go talk to people. People are still like, "What? I have to give you a monthly fee?" Yes, I got a friend who's convinced that we're just an MLM scam.
It's Amway.
He tells me every day, yeah, you got UIT providers, you guys are just an MLM scam. You just resell everyone else's products and take a piece of it. I'm like, that's not what we
Jeez,
do.
I'm gonna start one of these things. I didn't know it was that easy, Mike.
Oh, that sounds good. I think I'll do it. But you're right. You know, we were lucky with US Techs because when I started it, one thing I did not want to do was start over every day, which meant I had to go out and sell for break fix work, right? I didn't want to do that. I knew that we had to just focus 100% on that reoccurring revenue, the monthly reoccurring revenue, and we did not shy from that. Not one of our customers was a break fix customer at all from the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bold move and it paid out for you. Paid off.
It did. Yes,
Yeah.
it sure did.
Yeah.
So you think you sold in 2013 to to that company. Did you stay on board for a couple of years or did you step away then?
No, I was a firm believer when somebody else takes over, I need to move away because right, we're selling the company so the company can get to that next level, grow. And I was ready to move on. We had my business partner, Mike knows him, Kevin Fuller. We were ready to move on and start ThinkGuard, which was our backup disaster recovery business, or MSP. And so I stayed on 60 days. I think Kevin stayed on 90, and we literally walked across the street to the new office and got started.
So I didn't realize that. So you were ready to, you had things lined up for ThinkGuard right away. Like there was that
Absolutely.
transition plan in your head.
Correct. We had already, really the way it worked, the way I got the idea of ThinkGuard was Kevin and I were headed to a sales call in Tuscaloosa and Alabama. And we thought on the way back after we talked, and they were like, we just need somebody to do some backup and disaster recovery for us. That's all we need. And I came back and said, Kevin, would that not be amazing if we could just do a company that does backup and disaster recovery? That would be really cool. And we were already using Datto at the time. Rocco was our sales rep, and we'd had probably 50 or 60 Datto devices out there. And I thought this would be great. Datto would be a great platform to do this. So started talking with Rocco. Things just kind of started happening and falling into place. Got about 2 or 3 deals through ThinkGuard as I was walking out the door of US Tech. So it all just kind of seamlessly just flowed together.
And so the ThinkGuard name I've heard.
Yeah.
Were you guys awarded once at like a DagoCon or something? They used to give awards to big partners.
Yes.
I definitely know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
the
like,
golden
yeah.
data.
He's got a little smirk. He's like, yeah, we got some awards.
Hey, it wasn't me, it was the team.
Yeah. And then and the name Kevin Fuller. He said that name is familiar. I must know him.
Yeah. I'm sure you guys have bumped into
I'm
each
sure,
other before. Yeah.
I'm sure we have. Yeah. Yeah. Kevin ended up, when we sold ThinkGuard, he ended up being president for a couple of years with the company, and then he's moved on from there now.
So it's interesting, you were kind of ahead of the curve in terms of becoming an MSP, right? Kind of maybe a decade, like you said,
Yeah.
before that was even a thing, at least known, nationwide. And then you also were ahead of the curve of figuring out, well, hey, I could carve out this one particular niche and be the best at it. You know what I mean? Which we're seeing more of now. There's a lot more specialized MSPs. But again, both of those are leaps of faith. You know what I mean? To see this white space that maybe nobody else saw, and hitching your whole company onto that one go-to-market strategy. But how quickly did that pick up? I know you said you had a couple clients early on. How quickly did that spread?
It went faster than the first one. So we focused, as you know, on local and county government. That's all we focused on, because we had already had a bunch of that with US Techs doing managed IT services. So just made a lot of sense. We knew a lot of people in that industry. It was easy to get just start out there. It worked great, but I want to back up because I want to tell you a story. And then when we sell the company, this piece of the story will kind of tie. So during the process of selling US Techs, I was meeting probably once a month with a real good friend of mine that owned an MSP that was selling his MSP as well at the same time. And I was telling him my idea about ThinkGuard and just backup and disaster recovery. And I'll never forget Mike saying that will never ever work. You are you are making a terrible decision and you're going to lose it all doing this. He goes, we everything's moving to the cloud and it's not going to work, Paul. Okay. I'm going to stop there on that story. Just remember that.
Mm-hmm.
When we get to the cell, I'll tell you something else. So anyway, but yeah, going back to what you had asked, it was a leap of faith, but we felt that we guys enough that we felt like we could make it work, and we had already been making a lot of phone calls, talking to IT managers, CIOs in the industry that we went into, and we were just we felt like we had something, and we really did at the end. I mean, I can remember at some points, I mean, with Dado, we were one of their very, very top partners. That's all we sold was Dado,
Yeah.
and made a huge business around it. So
And so you fast forward, now you're looking to exit and ThinkGuard. Was it that you were just getting a lot of offers and something came up? Was it something that you were actively like, hey, I think this is time. It's time for us to move on. Like, how long did that process come about before you said, all right, it's time to sell?
So never thought about selling the business. What we did during COVID, we thought this was the time to start really growing the bit, like growing even more. But we want to go out and start acquiring companies. That's
Mhm.
what we wanted to find. Some of that were already in that space. So we hired in a group here, Founders Investment Banking Group, here in Birmingham, to look over everything and to tell us how should we go after businesses? Should we be getting loans? Should we try to bootstrap it? What should we do? So they came in and just did more of a forensics look on our business, the books, the whole 9 yards. And so they came back to us and they said, it's not time to build, it's time to sell. And
Interesting.
that got, Kevin and I thought about it for a while and we're like, okay, this makes sense. Let's look at that. Well, even during that time, remember we had started another company, Planet DR or Adept MC, which we can go over to if you want to. And that was a software business tailored into the MSP community as well.
That was the one that
So
did the disaster recovery plans, right?
that's it.
I was a partner.
With the Tesla that was wrapped. Was it a Tesla that
Yes.
was wrapped and you drive it around?
Yeah. We tied into Dado and
Yeah, you would
let's
tie
drive.
in. Yeah, I was a partner of that. Earlier, back when I was probably two techs, where you would put your Dago unit in, it would kick out your DR recovery plan, the PDFs. Yep.
That's it. Yeah, it's been a while back. But so we went through the whole process of buttoning up the company, getting it prepared to sell. And then so what Founders does, they bring it out to a lot of the VCs and the PEs and start getting interest in our company. And so I think at the time they had like over 2,000 venture capitalist private equity groups they could send this stuff out to that was looking to get into the MSP space or was already in it or whatever, and just kind of wrapping companies up. And we literally kind of whittled down that list from like 200. It just started coming down to about, I'm going to say it was like 10 or 12 we were interested in them as much as they were interested in us. And so going back to that story where my good friend had told me, don't do it, that I was going to waste all my money and be a complete failure in life. He was one that was sitting on the other side of the table trying to buy us.
That must have
And
felt
I
good.
let him know that. I was like, how does this feel? He just like head down,
Did you sell
you
to him?
covered something pretty amazing. So yeah, he was one that was that was going after us. He had already sold his company to a VC. And so they were looking at purchasing us, and he was kind of spearheading that.
Did he get it?
No, we ended up selling to VC3 out of South Carolina because they're in the government space. We were
Yeah.
in the government space. I knew Sandy, who was the CEO at the time, for quite a while, and we had talked back and forth a lot, and it made the most sense to go with them at the end of the day.
So I remember talking to you. It's probably a year after, and after you sold. And this is why I can never be an entrepreneur, because I would just run off into the sunset. I'd be the best fisherman you've ever seen in your life. My golf game would be on point. But I remember you saying, like, because you have that in you, you were like, I need to do something else, right?
Yes.
And we talked about some of the consulting stuff that you've been doing, giving back to the
Mhm.
community. But
Mhm.
the new venture that you and I have been talking about, I think is very fascinating, because it actually becomes a kind of a culmination of all the things that you learned over your 20 years in the channel. But
Yes.
I'll let you, and Mike hasn't even heard it, so I'll let you kind of talk about what it is you're working on now. I think it's really exciting and unique.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, this is, I guess, kind of a first thing, exclusive, you know. So work,
Take that,
so
CRN.
in the consulting side with MSPs, there's only so much of my time I can give out during the day or the week, and I still want to enjoy some of this retirement and do things with my kids, even though they're like young men now, and my wife, and go travel and do all that stuff. I knew that that wouldn't be what I wanted to ultimately end up doing, was just that consulting. So I was literally thinking about this driving down the road, and the term pocket MSP came to mind. And I think, Mike, you and I talked way back about doing something like this, but it just never really kind of worked out. So I'm creating it's being created now. We'll go in beta hopefully in the next few weeks. I hope to a month, maybe at the most. But Pocket MSP is taking your phone, right? And it's built in, it's an app on your phone that AI will be connected to the platforms that you use so that you can ask Pocket MSP. So this is just one piece of it. Ask Pocket MSP, hey, I need to know how many Windows servers I need to upgrade to this version. I need you to help me to create a plan and build that and go from there. So that's a piece of what it does. Also, help me come up with a plan. I need 30 user license of Office 365. How much should I sell that monthly for? What does that entail? Things like that. So a piece that you can just literally ask the phone, Pocket MSP, a question, and AI will help you to generate hopefully the correct answers and stuff. But it's not just like a chat. It's not just Chat GPT or Claude or any of that stuff. We're really tying it into PSAs, RMMs, all the platforms that you use, so it can grab that data collectively to help better give you the answer that you need to work on that project or to answer that sales call or to whatever the case may be. So that's just one piece of it. Another piece I think is going to be the focal point, the anchor of the system is circles. And circles is going to be a peer group system. There's going to be 5 to 8 MSPs in a circle, and there's going to be a mentor. And that mentor is going to always be that somebody that's been there and done it, that's bigger, that can really come in and help out the younger MSPs grow their business. But it's not going to be like a lot of the peer groups we see today, which are really operational and just sales driven. They still are using all the same. I don't get this, but they're still using all the same sales tactics of what's your all-in seat price and what is this, which is fine, but we're moving at such a fast pace. We need more answers quicker, and we need to kind of keep what we've learned in the past, but we got to see what the future brings us in those answers as well. So circles will be more than just operational sales. It'll be, hey, I'm having an HR issue with this employee, or I'm having an issue with this customer, or I'm having this or that. And your mentor in your circle will be able to help answer those questions and help you get through those challenges in your business. And then we're going to add, I don't want to give too much away, but then we're going to add a whole bunch more things into the app, from helping you to design QBRs to one of the things I was talking to an MSP today, that's going to get on beta, and I think had a great idea was, what if you're out at a sales call an hour, not sales call, but a service call an hour away, and then a ticket pops in 20 minutes down the road, Pocket MSP can say, hey, this ticket just finished. When you're done here, go on and move over here and get that done. And here's the problem. Here's some suggestions on fixing the issue, things like that. So it's going to be really a tactical app that's going to help the MSP owner to start with, but then we're going to be drilling down into the technicians, into HR, into whatever other departments are within that MSP that this app will be able to help run.
Yeah, very interesting. And I like that. I like the piece with my techs could use that because they love to go to one side of, the city and then drive to the other side of the city and then back. And you're like, do you not understand how to plan this out? Now, how with the AI piece and everything, are you using AI to help with vibe coding and such? Did that help to develop this now and make it easier for you to develop? Are you doing anything with that, or really standard type development of this app and everything?
Standard development. So, I mean, there's going to be a little of that, but I would say predominantly it's standard development.
Yeah, very interesting.
And
Can't wait to see it.
it's going to be great. It's pocketmsp.com. There's, but it's going to be a real interesting tool. I think it's going to really help the MSP owners and their company as a whole grow.
And is your
And it gives
logo the pocket
something
protector?
hey, there you go. I try to use that as the logo. And my son Harrison, he's at the University of Alabama, and he's a junior. He's going to be coming on board and doing the marketing and all that. And
Well, that's
I
awesome.
really, it's it's kind of like I want to set my kids up right, and but I want them to work for it, and I want them to see it. And he's an big entrepreneur, no different than my youngest one, Parker. So Harrison is really starting to grab onto it. He's helping design logos right now. He's doing all that fun stuff. So he's in it at the beginnings. So it's going to be a blast to work with him for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about it, and you look at the three companies you started, they're always kind of at the forefront. And I think what I'm seeing in the channel right now is everybody, peer groups are super important, but their time commitment that a lot, especially smaller MSPs, can't commit to. Right now, where are people going to get answers? They're going to Reddit, Facebook, which is just, in my opinion, a cesspool to be in. You know what I mean? God bless it. So to be able to say, all right, well, here's what are some of the issues that we have. All right, I need a place where I can go ask questions and not get yelled at or get into a fight about this on Reddit. Or I want to talk to my peers, but I don't have the bandwidth to do something like that. And I think it's solving some of those problems. And I think the more you go through beta with these MSPs, like they'll call you at today, more ideas. Like there's so much more. So I'm so excited for you, Paul.
I got an idea for you.
And the biggest thing, I'm sorry, I made this point out for you guys. The biggest thing that I can remember starting my MSP US Techs by myself and then bringing Kevin on as a partner. And then, of course, Kevin was with the other two companies as partners. But being by myself, a lot of times most MSPers feel like they are on an island by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They are free to talk to somebody about issues they're having, about growing their companies. And so they're like an island on themselves. Even with Kevin and I were so good about back and forth. He would say something, I say, hey, how about this? And be perfect, or vice versa. But sometimes we still felt like we were on an island by ourselves. And if we could have used some mentorship early on, how much bigger could we have been, or better could we have been as a company, not just us growing the business, but the employees and everybody as a whole that represents that company. And so I think this helps to be less of the feel of being on an island by yourself, and being able to tap into a mentor that's been there and done that in your circle that you can talk to and know that you've got NDAs and everything's in place so that you don't worry about this getting out. Because a lot of times we don't want to say how ugly our baby is.
Right.
But sometimes we need to say how ugly our baby is to help that baby get better. And that's asking the people around you, how do I do this? I'm struggling here.
Yep.
So that's a big piece of the circle side of Pocket MSP.
Yes. So before we're at the 30-minute mark. So before we finish, but I'm gonna give you the idea that I think will help my techs, because how many times do you see them? There you go, waste their time. So now if you're integrating in with all the different PSAs, and you can integrate in with Reddit and Down Detector and all the various MSP tools, if a ticket comes in, be able to look and have in there, hey, before you dig deep into this, Just so you know, Microsoft 365 is currently having issues. Or just so you know, there's currently a Windows update causing this exact issue that's being discussed on the Reddit forums and stuff. Because how many times do I come in and my team's getting a couple tickets and then you go, did you check anything yet?
Yeah.
And you go on the internet and you're like, yeah, there's a Windows update yesterday that was released causing the exact same issue that, tickets are coming in for.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I love that idea. That's really good.
I only give good ideas.
Mike's just committed himself to a beta. Awesome. Well, Paul, thank you so much. This was fascinating. It's good stuff. It's always good to see you. I will give a plug, pocketmsp.com. Definitely, if you're an MSP listening to this podcast, check it out because I think it's something that the industry needs, and I think it's solving a problem.
And the last question I have for you, you said that, obviously they said you were going to be a used car salesman, but if you go all the way back, what was your dream? What did you want to do?
8-year-old Paul Franks.
I don't remember that far back. I love cars. So, I mean, I probably thought, going back and looking at the yearbook, I probably would thought I'd been a used car salesman. So,
There you go.
there's anything wrong with it because I love cars. But no, I mean, heck, I was just a young kid, just trying to figure out what are we doing this weekend?
There you go.
All of us and stuff, never really was thinking about the future as much.
There you go.
But God had a plan, and He just laid it down on me, and so I'm living it out.
That's it, man. Good things happen to good people, Paul. So thank you again. I really appreciate it. Thank you for everybody that listened in to Unheard Journeys. We got a couple more episodes coming out, so I appreciate everybody that's been listening.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Paul.
Yeah, y'all have a great day.
You too.
Bye.